You check your phone again. Still nothing. You scroll through old messages, looking for a clue. You replay conversations, overanalyzing every word, every emoji, every moment where you thought things were going well, and then nothing. Silence, disappearance, ghosted. It feels like rejection, like abandonment, like you weren't enough. But what if that's not the whole truth? What if they didn't ghost you because you were too little, but because you were too much, too deep, too self-aware, too honest, too whole? Carl Jung would tell you to look inward, not outward. He would say, this is not about you being unworthy, it's about them being unready. Because sometimes people don't walk away because of what you lack. They leave because they cannot meet you where you stand. To Jung, relationships are mirrors. What someone can't accept in you is often what they haven't faced in themselves. When someone ghosts you after you've shown up authentically, when you've expressed vulnerability, emotional depth, or spiritual insight, their silence isn't always about you. It's about their resistance to their own shadow. Jung defined the shadow as the unconscious parts of the self, the traits we disown, repress, or deny because they feel too heavy, too inconvenient, or too painful. When someone is triggered by your depth, your emotional honesty, your clarity of intention, it might be because you activate a part of them they're not ready to see. You weren't ghosted because you were wrong. You were ghosted because your presence demanded their presence, because your truth revealed their avoidance, because your emotional language required fluency they hadn't yet developed. This is not an excuse for immaturity or poor communication. It's not a justification for cowardice, but it is an explanation for why certain people disappear when faced with real connection. People don't run from depth because it's unlovable. They run because it requires them to confront their own emotional limitations. And if they've built their identity around performance, people-pleasing, or avoidance, your authenticity is not soothing, it's confronting. Jung believed that we unconsciously attract people who reflect our inner world. The ones who ghost you may carry the very traits you've outgrown: emotional unavailability, fear of intimacy, self-abandonment. Their silence is not a statement about your worth, but a reflection of their discomfort. It's easy to internalize rejection, to say, I was too intense, or I should have been cooler. But that narrative keeps you small. It teaches you to shrink your truth, to mute your authenticity, to abandon yourself just to keep someone else comfortable. Jung would ask, at what cost? At what cost do you dim your light just so others don't feel blinded by it? At what cost do you trade honesty for harmony? At what cost do you beg for breadcrumbs when you were built for banquets? Ghosting is not a reflection of your unworthiness. It's a revelation of their unreadiness. You spoke the language of truth. They only knew the dialect of escape. And you know what hurts most? It's not the silence. It's the promise, the glimpse of potential, the way they looked at you like they saw something, the way they leaned in like they meant it, the way it felt real for a moment until it vanished. But here's what you need to remember. Someone seeing your light doesn't mean they know how to hold it. Some people stop showing up not because you scared them, but because they'd rather run than grow. They'd rather disappear than evolve. Now, this is the hard part about being self-aware in a world that rewards detachment. Your depth is your gift, but it will often be misunderstood. It will be labeled as too much. Your emotional literacy will feel like pressure to someone who avoids their own feelings. Your clarity will feel like confrontation to someone who thrives in confusion. But that does not mean you should change. You were not made to dilute yourself. You were not made to water down your soul for those who cannot swim. Dr. Nicole LePera, the holistic psychologist, writes, people can only meet you as deeply as they've met themselves. So if someone ghosts you after you show them your truth, it's because your truth required a level of presence they weren't prepared to give. And here's the deeper truth. Some people don't ghost you because of what they felt. They ghost you because of what they were starting to feel, and it scared them. Real connection is terrifying to the emotionally underdeveloped. Being seen is a threat to someone who's built walls their whole life. Being loved in their raw form is unfamiliar, uncomfortable, and often overwhelming. You didn't break them, you revealed them. You revealed the gap between who they are and who they pretend to be. You revealed the gap between the life they live and the life they long for. You revealed the parts of themselves they've kept hidden. Carl Jung believed we are always interacting with both people and projections. In other words, we don't see others as they are. We see them through the lens of our own unconscious patterns. And when someone disappears after getting close to you, it often means they projected something onto you that their psyche couldn't reconcile. Maybe you reminded them of their own unworthiness. Maybe your emotional maturity made them feel like a child again, vulnerable, unsure, unprepared. Maybe they saw the reflection of their emotional cowardice in your emotional courage, and so they disappeared. Not because they couldn't feel something, but because they couldn't feel everything. Ghosting isn't just a communication problem, it's a psychological defense mechanism. It's avoidance dressed in silence. And silence is easier than self-confrontation. For someone emotionally underdeveloped, avoidance feels safer than authenticity. Distance feels safer than depth. Escaping feels easier than explaining. They were not rejecting you. They were retreating from the version of themselves that would have needed to show up fully. They were not afraid of your love. They were afraid of the mirror you held up to their soul. Your presence revealed their absence. Your clarity illuminated their confusion. Your emotional availability made their avoidance impossible to hide. That kind of confrontation. It shakes people, especially people who have never been required to be emotionally accountable, especially people who grew up suppressing their needs and feelings, especially people who believe affection must come without vulnerability. They didn't ghost you because of your flaws. They ghosted you because of your self-awareness. And so next time someone disappears, without explanation, without closure, without care, don't collapse into yourself. Don't turn your radiance into regret. Don't twist your self-worth into a question. Do not shrink. Do not edit your soul to fit inside someone else's silence. Do not gaslight yourself into believing that presence is a crime. Take a breath. Return to your body. Return to your truth. And remember, you were not ghosted. You were revealed. Their disappearance doesn't show your weakness. It shows your strength. It shows the emotional maturity they couldn't match. It shows that you're operating on a level that not everyone can meet. You weren't left because you were too much. You were left because you were too real. In a world built on performance and pretense, you were too honest in a dating culture obsessed with playing it cool. You were too integrated for someone who hasn't even met their shadow. And that is not rejection. That is confirmation. Confirmation that you've grown, that you've outgrown superficiality, that you no longer resonate with half-effort, almost love, or emotionally absent partnerships. Confirmation that you now require reciprocity. You're no longer available for people who only love you in fragments. You no longer tolerate being an emotional crutch. You no longer bend to be accepted. Carl Jung taught that healing doesn't come from being chosen by others. It comes from choosing yourself over and over again, especially when it's hard, especially when it hurts, especially when it would be easier to abandon yourself for someone else's approval. So choose yourself now, not in bitterness, not in ego, but in truth. Not because they disappeared, but because you finally see you never needed to become smaller to be loved. You never needed to suppress your needs to be kept. You never needed to translate your soul into silence. You only needed to be seen. And those who can truly see you, they will not ghost you. They will not vanish when your heart opens. They will not panic when your feelings surface, because to them your depth is not a threat. It's a relief. It's a resonance. It's a match. To the right person, your emotional presence won't feel like pressure. It will feel like permission to show up to breathe deeper, to exhale, to be human, because they've done the work. They've met their shadow. They've faced their fears, and they're not afraid of yours. They won't ghost you because they're not afraid of being seen, and they're not afraid of seeing you. You don't have to chase them. You don't have to guess. You don't have to earn it. You just get to be. But until then, until they arrive, protect your energy. Stop giving your softness to people who treat connection like a game. Stop giving your openness to people who weaponize silence. Stop giving your sacred self to people who only know how to disappear. Ghosting is not about you. It's about their limits. And the longer you mourn their absence, the more you abandon your own presence. So come back to yourself. Reclaim the parts of you that wanted to shrink. Reclaim the voice that wanted to apologize for being honest. Reclaim the part of you that almost forgot how much you've grown. You're not meant to live in the emotional waiting room of someone else's indecision. You're not meant to shrink your light to avoid casting shadows. And you're not meant to prove your worth to people who can't hold it. As Jung would say, the privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. Not everyone will stay for that process. Not everyone will applaud it, but the right ones will arrive. Not because you begged them to, but because your energy finally stopped tolerating what no longer matched your worth. Because the moment you stop chasing silence, you begin attracting resonance. And that's how you know you've healed, not when you stop feeling the pain, but when you stop assigning your value to those who disappeared. You realize they didn't ghost you, they couldn't handle you, and that makes all the difference.